Hey, howdy, friends. It's Steve DePaul with the Rose Realty team with this week's real estate vlog for North Texas. Today, preventing home buyers remorse. So a study was done and found that 64% of millennials who bought a home in the last, say 2 years, had regrets about buying and owning that home. One of the top reasons is the maintenance costs and the maintenance associated with home ownership. So I guess I'm assuming that they felt that it was going to be like renting a house or renting an apartment, and that some of the maintenance and the maintenance cost would be passed off to somebody else. Okay. Truth of the matter is, you own a home, you got to cut the lawn, you got to do the landscaping, and you got to make sure your pipes or your plumbing is working, right? And so they didn't quite grasp that, and so they were kind of bummed about that. Another 13% said that they felt they paid a higher price for the house than they should have. But let's understand the times we were in. Okay, we're talking 2 years ago, and 2 years ago, anytime you had a listing, what would end up happening is you would get 5 or 10 offers, all of them more than the next one. So you'd be 25, 50, $75,000 over list price. And then, so for the buyer at that point, it's a matter of taking the advice of their real estate agent, number one. And number two, you're either in it or not. So if you don't want to be in it and paying those prices, back off. We'll wait till the prices come down and things stabilize, right? If you needed or wanted that house, that year or that summer or whatever, it is what it is. And we had to bite the bullet and go for it, right? Appraisal contingency is being waived. Not always a good idea, and something I have never recommended. Okay, so what that means when you waive a appraisal contingency is the house gets appraised, typically for the mortgage. Okay, the mortgage company wants to know how much the house is worth. So should something kind of really catastrophic happen, they can get their money out of the house. Typically what that means then for the buyer is either, number one, they have to renegotiate and say, okay, we're not paying this price, we want to pay this price instead. Typically the seller won't do that because they have a backup offer. Okay. Or what happens is the buyer then has to come up with additional cash at closing, so that it all kind of works out and evens out, so that the bank then is comfortable with the fact that they're loaning money against a house that is worth more than the loan amount. Okay, speed showings. This was real popular, frankly, in Austin, and also in California, where you only have like 15 minutes to see a house. You like run around the house, take a look at everything, try to remember what you saw, and get out of there in like 15 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So not so on that thing, that's probably why we do open houses, so people can come by and take their time and relax and look at the house. Right. But anyway, so speed showing is not a good deal. It doesn't really help, the buyer or the seller, really, in that kind of situation. And at the end of the day, after you've seen 4 or 5 or 6 houses, you don't know one from the next, and your mind is just a jumble. Okay. And so not a real great idea. Now, top of your price range. In the micro economies and micro market that we have here in North Dallas, it's not really a great idea at that point, or even today, to go in at your top dollar. Example. So if we connect you with a lender, and the lender says you can afford $500,000, it's not a great idea to go in at looking at $500,000 houses. It's a better idea to look at houses that are $425,000 or $450,000. Why? Well, for 2 real reasons. Number one, if there are multiple offers on the house and you get into a bidding war, okay, you don't want to be at 500 and then settle for 525, which is something that's outside of your comfort zone. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you want to look at the 425 range in my example. You want to look at the 425 range so that when you buy it at 425, you have additional money in your pocket to maybe do some of those fix up things, paint, carpet, tile, whatever. And you're not tapped out having to say, we have to wait for 5 years in order to paint, because we don't have any spare cash. Okay. Need to compromise. They're number one, I encourage all my buyers to make a list of have to haves and nice to haves. Okay. Have to have is 4 bedrooms because you got 3 kids. Okay. Nice to have is a pool. All right. And so make a list of your have to haves and your nice to haves and carry that with you. And let's compare the house to your list when we sit down and talk after showings, to make sure that the house that you think you want to put an offer in on has at least 80% of your have to haves. Okay. Don't go for the 110% mark. Geez, we want to go for something with all of our have to haves and half of our like to haves. Okay. Don't do that, because you'll frankly never be satisfied and never find the house that you're looking for. To be honest with you. So there's sort of this need to compromise and understanding that not every house is going to be 110% of what you're looking for. Make sure it's got those basic things that you really, really need to have. And then when it's got a few wanna haves, then that's great. And we're in good shape. We put in a respectable, decent offer that isn't going to drive you nuts, first time you got to pay the mortgage payment. Okay. Hey, I hope that kind of helped. That's good advice no matter what kind of environment we're in. Next week, we're going to talk about shopping around for a mortgage. Now we're going to give you some clues on how to kind of like level mortgages out so that you're talking apples and apples and not apples and grapefruits. Okay. So I hope that's going to be a good topic for you. This is Steve DePoe. I am with the Rose Realty team. I'm out.